Hi, I'm Raj, and welcome to the author interview. Books have this phenomenal magic in them. They take you on journeys, teach you lessons, and give you comfort. Joining me to share her author journey and speak about her book is the amazing Chene Tuck. Welcome to the author interview.
Hey Raj, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited to host you, and we're going to kick things off with your journey as a writer and creator. Where did this begin?
It began in childhood, really. I mean, in high school, my English teacher still said to me, but I didn't think much of it, where she was like, you're really good at writing poems and that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, you know how teenagers are. They're kind of like, that's cool, thanks. But I used to also like take existing songs and kind of like rewrite the lyrics. And I had like a poem book where I like um collected poems and yeah, a journal.
And a journal in particular is something that's quite close to your heart because you did come out with a reading journal not too long ago. As a fellow book talk girly, walk me through what this was like for you.
The reading journal or
Yeah,
having a journal growing up?
the
The
reading
reading
journal.
journal. Um, with that, I needed a physical place to track my books. Like I had all the online apps and that kind of stuff, but I literally wanted somewhere where I could make notes so that when I did my reviews and that kind of stuff, I had something to fall back on. And I looked for something to buy initially, and all the cool ones were overseas. So they were really expensive to get into South Africa. And the ones that you could get through the cheaper online shopping portals, if you know what I mean, um, I didn't like them. I ordered one or two and I didn't connect with it. It had pointless questions and I found it very boring. So, inspired by a few people on TikTok and Instagram by their reading journals that they used to make, like physically make themselves, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to design a journal for myself. And I want to put it in bookshops. I wanted it accessible to the South African readership, really, because if I couldn't find one, then I was just going to make one. So version one was kind of like, I want to call it trial and error. Obviously there's a lot of things that I'm changing for the next one because ultimately it was just a journal for me, and maybe you like it, maybe you don't.
Well, I personally feel like many people connected with your reading journal because it felt tangible. It was something that you could physically do when you need to unwind, but also jot down and share your experiences. And it gave you the feeling of being a book talk girly in reality. So definitely something special. And I'm excited to see version 2.0 as it comes out. Um, and I noticed to the side there, finding my soup girl.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be published for your memoir?
It's pretty cool. Like I don't know how to describe it really, It's amazing that I got to this point that I have a physical book that I can hold in my hand, and it's quite thick, When I was initially writing it and I had my first, let's call her editor, and she kept on saying like, how many chapters do you have to go? How many chapters do you have to go? And I said, I don't know because I don't know where the book ends because I was still living the journey that I wrote about while I was writing, So yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, exciting.
Now, as you mentioned, it is quite a weighty book. And if I'm not mistaken, it's about 400 pages there. Um,
Closer to 500. I look, it is 561.
Nice. So definitely something that holds a lot about your journey through life and your travels. And what did that have in terms of influence when it comes to your writing, having been so vastly traveled?
You know, I wrote, I had a journal with me wherever I went, and it was my like a personal journal, and that was kind of like my coping mechanism for a lot of things that I dealt with that I share with you guys there. Because in my book, I don't only tell you the highs, I tell you my lows, like my real lows. And I share with you when I mess up. And sometimes people, like, nobody teaches us how to deal with the things when we mess up, you know. Sometimes we get scolded, but nobody actually tells us, like, okay,
How do you
well,
fix
this
it?
has happened. This has happened. Now what? You know, what do you do now? So it was more like was documenting it, and I just wanted people to know that they're not alone. Like a lot of people, when they've come back, like with the few people that have come back to me once they've read it, if they've gone, oh my gosh, me too. You know, it's the things that we don't say out loud, the judgments in our head that we don't want to share with the world. And now I'm thinking I'm crazy having like shared that, like, you know, you're taking your inner voice and you're sharing it. But we need to know that we're not alone in our struggles. You're not the first and you're not the last to go through it.
I think that this is something that people don't often realize when it comes to memoirs, is that it's not simply relaying a story that you've lived or sharing the vulnerability in aspects of your life, which you've done very authentically. It's also the fact that a memoir tends to be almost a lighthouse in the storm, as such, because you
Yeah.
see it when you're in such turmoil, and sometimes viewing it from an external source actually helps you to see the lessons and the ways to get through it. And when it comes to the amount of vulnerability that you've put into your writing, how has this felt for you?
Scary. Like sometimes it's really scary. You know, you're putting your heart out there, your mistakes, your journey, and you're not asking people to judge, but people judge anyway. I mean, that's just kind of what happens. But you know what? I'm not doing it for the people that'll have judgments. I'm doing it for the people that need help, like
Yeah.
hope, really. Because that's what I needed. I mean, in the very beginning of my book, I write about two books that I read, and that because I was very lonely in the beginning where I didn't have anyone to talk to. And those two books gave me strength to be like, okay, you know, they went through this, they got through this, and they're successful and they're happy. So, you know, there's got to be light at the end of the tunnel for me.
I think that what you've touched on is something that so many people can relate to when books actually keep us company. And I think that your book definitely does that for so many people, especially in terms of what I've been seeing on Book Talk. So many people saying that even though they aren't considering themselves as readers, they found that they can't put it down because it's literally being on this journey alongside you. And I do want to ask, what is your favorite part of the book? You can share spoilers if you have to.
You know, there's different favorite parts for different reasons. Like, probably the most memorable thing of my entire life would be the 2 weeks I spent in Bali. Like, that was each place I went to taught me a different version of love. Like, Thailand taught me about the love of others. Like I have so much love, I had so much love to give those kids that I taught. I felt like I had 84 children because I spent up to 8 to 10 hours a week with those kids, you know, 2 to 3 hours a day, like teaching them English, trying to get them. confident in the language. It's not necessarily about the grammar, but I just wanted them to be comfortable enough, confident enough to communicate, even if they use the wrong verb or something like that. And their success was my success. Do you know what I mean? In the way that I just wanted to see them happy and succeed. So Thailand was like the love of others. Vietnam was learning to love another, like opening my heart again, to um some experiences that I had there. But Bali was the love of self, like where I just what I reconnected with myself. I went surfing and I did yoga lessons and I had happy hour at the end of the day with some friends in a little beach bar and went exploring, and like that was where I worked through some of my own issues because that's what yoga does as well. Yoga really like
Mhm.
releases those emotions. So Bali is really special to me. Also because it healed a lot of wounds, because there was a big wound, which I won't spoil, that came from my first trip to Bali. And going back there kind of like helped me heal myself.
I think it's so powerful, Shanae, that you've got a chance to experience so many different facets of love and that you could have this healing. And I think many people who encounter your book find themselves healing alongside you between the pages. And so now that you have your memoir published, what's next for Chene Tuck?
I've got three projects in the work.
Okay.
So I know. It's like just dive in. Well, the one you know about, which is the update of the reading journal, where it's actually I'm quite excited about the new version because I've included things like a few 30-day challenges, because a lot of people follow me and they look forward to like the daily posts of like going through your bookshelf and let's do something like this, or let's do something, let's post with this title and that kind of stuff. So as much as it's for readers, I've also opened up a section towards the book talkers and the
Content,
Instagrammers for
yeah.
content. So I've I've increased, I've like expanded in that way. I've got a bunch of ideas that I'm still working on. So there's the reading journal. Then I've just finished draft one of, it's a little book that I kind of dedicated to my daughter. It's called, at this point, I don't know if the title will change. It's called Dear Donna. Um, and it's really just like a little toolkit for wisdom for like life, like a really short book of just different topics and a thought about it to maybe help you rethink the situation. Like I talk about being kind, like always be kind. You can be honest and still be kind
Yeah.
at the end of the day. I talk about success and failure, that they're opposites. They work together, you know. And just different little topics. Like if I weren't here, this would be a little book that I would leave her so that she could learn some lessons without learning the lessons, if you know what I mean.
I think that's really precious, actually. I think it would be a gift from mothers to children, from aunts to nieces and nephews, because sometimes even though we want to guide them, pe like little kids don't necessarily feel like they can share their struggles, but this would help them along. So I think it's such a precious idea.
Yeah. I think my favorite chapter is where it actually was, I cried after writing it, which was called You're Worth It, where I wrote to Donna just about like, it doesn't matter what the world thinks about you. If you want to be loved, come home. You know, shine your light in the world. Do what you need to do. But if you need love, if you need support, if you need validation, I say validation lightly because I also say you don't need validation. Nobody needs to be validated. Come home, because that's where you are loved. And like what's the word I'm looking for? Appreciated. I can't think of it right now, but that's where you belong, the people who see your value.
I absolutely love that. And Shanae, you're a firm favorite in Book Talk and Bookstagram and all over social media. And it's for a good reason because you put so much of time, effort, and heart into everything you do, whether it is the journals, the books, your content. And I want to ask, what guidance would you have for other women out there who look to you and they think maybe I can do that too? What would you say to
Oh, you
them?
can. You can do it. And if you feel a call in your heart, you should do it. There's a reason. I don't understand the reason that I like I've sat with myself and I've been like, why am I writing this book? It's a legit like, why am I bearing my wounds and my vulnerability to people that might not appreciate it, but there has to be a bigger reason, and even the way that it's gone about, like how I ended up being signed by the Italian publisher, like that was also just like such a smooth transition where people normally struggle a lot. And I've struggled on the contracts a lot just because it's a lot of new things, especially for like a first time author. But if I think outside the box, maybe their reach is something that I won't be able to do on my own. And they're exposing my book to Europe and the UK where I would not be able to do it on my own. So there's got to be a reason. And if you feel the call in your heart, just do it. Your first project might not be the bestseller. Your first project might suck, and that's okay. Like
Yeah.
you get better. Writers write. So write. You cannot edit a blank page. And the only way that you can get better is with practice.
I love that. That is some really sound advice. And what I take from it is it's there. You have it. So go for it. It will work out. And Shanae,
Exactly.
I want to thank you so much for not just sharing your thoughts in this interview, but also for sharing your heart, your journey, and your experiences in your memoir. Thank you so much.
We actually forgot my third project.
Yes, tell me.
Just before we round up, I feel like this is probably my biggest project to date that I need to start. But I want to write a six-book fantasy book. Real estate
Okay.
fantasy. So yeah, that is big, big goals, big leaps.
Well, I see no reason as to why you can't do it, because you absolutely can. And as a woman, to have your perspective, your viewpoint in this, it will only enrich the market. So, yeah, go for it.
Thank you. I'll keep you up to date. How that goes.
Of course. And I think even in the context of that, there is still so much of learning, so much of empowerment that will come from it. And if there's one thing I've noticed about you is that gentle empowerment is kind of your vibe. So I look
Yeah.
forward to seeing everything Chene Tuck brings to us in the future.
Thank you, Raj. I appreciate all your support and just taking the time out to chat to me.
Of course.